Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to our Link and Learn networking sessions. My name's Samantha Webb. I'm super excited to be here and to be leading and facilitating this discussion about work-life balance. This Link and Learn is going to give us the opportunity to engage in conversations and share our own experiences and ideas and insights. So with that, I definitely encourage each of you to participate and share your own perspectives about this topic. So just unmute whenever you feel like chiming in and contributing. I did want to start off by saying I do have some experience with this topic, but by no means am I an expert on work-life balance. So I'm definitely eager to hear what each of you has to say. Yeah, so I thought first maybe we could kind of kick this off with what work-life balance means. What is our own definition of work-life balance? What does that look like to us? What would we want that to look like? Those sorts of things.
So I guess to me, like a work-life balance is almost kind of like that very literal kind of a translation, just like how are you literally balancing the expectations you have at work, both kind of the ones that you set for yourself, as well as just kind of others' expectations of your role. And then your life is just kind of everything outside of that. So any of your personal interests, any family, any other obligations, and just kind of figuring out like not giving too much time to just one, figuring out which one kind of needs your attention at that time, and figuring it all out in the middle.
Yeah, so prioritizing all the things in your life and being aware of those expectations.
I would say like finding it internally in yourself could like for me it could be different than someone else on staff.
Right. Yeah, so like what that means to you and what that looks like might look completely different to someone else that you work with, and having that understanding that that's okay and being mindful of other people and their expectations for their work. I think something that comes to mind for me is like boundaries and having that in place so that there can be this harmony of work and life and all of the things.
I think working with older college students, like I come from the high school setting, so I'm relatively new to higher ed, but working with college age students who have more freedom in their time, finding how to serve them without using too much of your personal time outside of normal work hours, so you got to find that balance and not let it intrude too much on your life.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. Definitely a key piece to the work that we do, because we often give so much and we care so much that we want to be available and accessible to help, but being mindful of how that may impact us and wanting to have clear-cut times when we are available versus when we are prioritizing ourselves. So looking at some, I have some of these like little questions that we can discuss. Some of them talk about like the challenges that we see coming up for us in achieving work-life balance and how we've gone about addressing those challenges and barriers. And then also looking at like universities and the institutions, how can a culture be created that values work-life balance? Any thoughts about those things?
So kind of looking at like the university culture and like that side.
Yeah.
I know for like our office, one of the things that we kind of did after COVID was really figure out how much we could do from like work from home, because we had to like figure it all out basically. So we've definitely implemented just a policy where we kind of all look at our schedules to see which days might work best for us to work from home, and allowing us that kind of flexibility and time to look at our schedules, see what we need, and kind of take the day where obviously we're on our laptops and everything, but being able to just kind of be in our own environment has been kind of a cool thing for at least our office that we've done.
Yeah, allowing for that flexibility.
I'm still relatively new. I just started in February, so I haven't really gotten, I haven't even been a full semester yet, so I haven't really gotten into it yet, but the people I work with are pretty flexible with that stuff. So, if we have something going on, we have that flexibility to, if we need to work from home, they're usually pretty good about that.
Yeah, well, congratulations on this new role. That's very exciting, and to hear that people that you work with seem like they're going to be supportive and flexible, and maybe they also prioritize that work-life balance so that it is valued in the workplace. That's what it kind of sounds like for your situation.
Absolutely.
Sam, what was like one of the earlier parts that you had in that first question, or in this question, sorry.
It was about the challenges. So some of the challenges that academic faculty might face in achieving work-life balance.
Oh, gotcha. So from that, just sharing. So obviously, in my role, I am assistant director with academic affairs at LSU. And then I also am the academic advisor for baseball, gymnastics, and both golf teams. So with that, majority of my teams, obviously their gymnastics is winter, but they compete mostly in spring, and all the other sports are mostly spring. So dealing with all of their travel and things like that. So trying to be around and do stuff when they are on campus and getting them. I also travel with baseball whenever they're away. So that may be an off time, but I'm also still kind of on because you're still working, but figuring out kind of like, okay, what are their expectations for me when we are traveling? How can I balance that time? How can I still have like a couple of moments to myself, even though like we're on the road in a hotel and things like that. So, especially, just spring is always very crazy with that kind of work-life balance. So.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a lot, especially the whole traveling with the team. And like beginning to prioritize yourself. Have you noticed anything that's been like helpful? You talked about finding some time for yourself. Like maybe some of the things you might do in that time to kind of reset.
So actually I'm also completing a second master's degree right now in counseling with a focus in school counseling. And even though it's I'm full-time doing that as well, and it's not an online program, it's on campus, so attending classes and everything, for me it's actually helped kind of create more of a schedule for me where I might have to read for class, but I kind of use that as like a fun time. So if I'm on the road, for example, I might like go onto their campus and explore and like sit, like we were just at Ole Miss. I went and like sat in the Grove and like read my book for class, which for me was kind of fun and exciting, just being outside and having that kind of time to myself too, while also exploring a different campus was fun for me. So kind of looking at my schedule, creating that schedule, and then finding ways to kind of still enjoy my time when I have it.
Yeah, it sounds like you definitely capitalized on that time, and being outdoors and getting some fresh air was a good way for you to spend that time. That's nice.
Other than being in Oxford. I live in North Mississippi, and I graduated from LSU, so not an Ole Miss fan.
Right. Oh, that's funny.
I will say it was this past weekend, obviously. So LSU baseball was there, of course, but then also it was the Morgan Wallen concert. So poor Oxford was just overwhelmed with people, which I kind of forget obviously, LSU, like the size, were like 37,000 students. They have maybe 20,000, they said. So even just like going to like they have a Dunkin' there now. So I was trying to just get a iced coffee, walking around, and they were so swamped. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. But just they're so not used to that amount of people. But yeah, people watching also for that trip. Amazing.
That was funny to me when we first moved to Mississippi, because we went to visit Oxford, and I was like, after being in Baton Rouge, I was like, really, this is it? And then it's the same in Starkville, because my daughter went to school in Starkville, and it's a small school there too. It's not very big, so it was just kind of culture shock for me.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I know it's funny. Both of those areas, just from seeing them in the past couple of years, like they have been really trying, like with new restaurants and stuff. I mean, even just last time I've been in Oxford was about like 2 years ago, I think. And I don't think they had a Starbucks at the time, but now they do have a Starbucks and now a Dunkin' too. So I was just like, wow. But it's just so funny, like the different places, like what little things like that they have.
Right.
Okay. Let me see. I'm like going through some of these questions. What would y'all say, because we've kind of started talking a little bit about like self-care and those practices. What do you think are some important self-care practices, and how do you think those could be integrated into busy schedules? I mean, Taylor, like you said, not only are you working, but you're also in grad school.
So for self-care, to me, it kind of like also depends on like what I think I need at the time and how I'm feeling. So I also have a dog. So even just like going on like a small little walk with my dog will be really big. Just kind of like taking time away from things for a second. Always, obviously, I always have my cell phone with me, but even just putting it like on do not disturb and not knowing like, oh, I have like those notifications I'm always looking at too, is really a big thing I found that helps me just kind of check out for a second and have more time to like be present in the moment and things like that.
A lot of my kind of decompressing time is actually, my kids are older now. I have one that recently graduated from college, and then I have another one who's going to be graduating from college in December, and then I have a 16-year-old. So going to their activities and seeing their, what they have going on, that's kind of a way for me to kind of step away from what I do, and then just be able to relax and watch them do their thing and not have to worry about the work aspect of it. So like, yeah, I work in athletics and I go watch my son play football, but it's a different kind of, it's a different kind of atmosphere. It's not a work atmosphere. It's me just enjoying it as a parent.
Right. Yeah. And like thinking about what's important to you as well, like your family is probably super important to you, and like having those moments and spending time with them, it not only takes you away from your work, but it is like a memory that you'll have and can cherish that brings about some joy. I think for me, I like being outside. I know, Taylor, I think you had said that, being outside and getting fresh air and having some sort of like movement, which I think is fun too. Like working with athletes, they're always doing all the sports, but I like to play tennis for fun, and do things like that. So it's still like in that realm of athletics, but it's like for me to decompress and to connect with others.
I think it's kind of funny how in general too, like how we'll still kind of find a way to like look at athletics and see that side of it. Like my parents have gotten to travel, and like they'll meet up with me like when I'm traveling with team, or even they'll come to Baton Rouge to visit, and I'm like, oh, and like, well, my dad's like a huge sports fan. My mom loves to watch it too. So people be like, wow, you're really like bringing your parents to like a gymnastics meet or a baseball game, but they absolutely love it too. So and then like I get to like brag about my teams at the same time too, like, oh, look, like I'm so happy they're doing well and stuff like that. But it is funny kind of like being able to sometimes tie all of that in where you are spending time with people and having that interaction, but getting to also kind of bring in like your athletic side too.
Right. Yeah, it is fun. You know, watching my son play football is fun to me. Watching my LSU Tigers, of course, is also you know, fun.
Yeah, and that's probably been such a big part of our lives is sports and athletics, and it's probably what kind of brought us into this world too of working with student athletes and supporting students and those sorts of things. So I think that's nice how we've been able to enjoy that outside of our work as well. How do y'all think that faculty and staff can support each other to achieve work-life balance? And what are some ways to foster a supportive work environment?
I know that we are all we all get along pretty well in the office. And we do try to kind of, you know, just chit chat with each other a lot and just kind of take ourselves out of it just for a few minutes, just to, you know, chit chat about things. You know, I have one of our GAs who was a cheerleader in college, and she worked for varsity, and my little one is a cheerleader. So we, you know, we talk about stuff like that, you know, just to kind of take us out of the moment, you know, get our minds off of something that may be irritating us about one of our, you know, student athletes or something. So it's just kind of nice to connect like that and you know, take ourselves out of that moment for, you know, just a few minutes to decompress and then kind of go back and face it again.
Yeah, building those relationships.
I was gonna say too, we have obviously like, so you've seen LSU's campus, so you know, like we have our office is kind of like at the top of the hill near the PMAC and kind of across from football. And then down the hill near Mike the Tiger, like right across from him, they have a Starbucks. So sometimes our staff will kind of just say like, oh, hey, like, let's go walk down if it's really nice out too, or take a golf cart if it's not nice out. And just kind of like go take ourselves outside of the building too. Or I've been known to literally have to go class check or something. I'm like, hey, come and like walk with me. Let's just go outside, or let's go grab a coffee somewhere else too. So definitely even just like stepping outside, like even if you're on campus, but seeing people outside of kind of that normal office environment sometimes I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's something that I think they've recently started in this office too, is, you know, they'll do what they call like a staff meeting, but it's more like, and like they'll do a tailgate at a softball game, or I think they just tailgated at the spring game, but the weather was bad, so I didn't get a chance to go. But we did one day we did like, we have the Top Golf suites. It's not Top Golf, but it's like the virtual Top Golf. And we got together and just, you know, outside of the office and, you know, went and did that and hung out for a couple hours. So that's been nice, you know, having those little get-togethers like that are away from the office.
Yeah, it like creates that sense of community with each other that's not always focused on work and tasks and things. It's like where you can really get to know each other and collaborate and feel like united.
Yes.
Which is interesting too, to see how that sometimes plays out with student athletes and coaches as well. I've been known to show up to like just practices, not even like events or anything. And I remember another school I worked at, I guess the head coach had never seen like the academic advisor like really super outside of that role. So like one time I just stopped by literally just to kind of hang out, see the students working out and everything. And the coach came out to me, he's like, is everything okay? I was like, oh yeah, I'm just here like checking out, saying hi. And he was like, oh, I like that. Okay. And so even sometimes seeing like those kind of people outside, they can see you as well, which kind of brings back to like work life where they're like, oh wait, no, I know that this is a person too. And they're outside the office. They're not just always coming to see me to bring bad news or anything like that. But yeah, I always say like just seeing people in different environments, different roles, atmospheres kind of can help too with all of that and being supportive.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on that, that's something that I noticed that they've done here is they will have some of the, you know, faculty here, the professors and stuff, be what they call guest coaches. and the academic advisor for football will take them over there, and they'll take them to a meeting, like a position meeting. They'll take them out to practice. They give them a tour of the facilities, and the students like to see that. They like to see us out there. I went with her one time and just kind of went and hung out at practice, and saw how everything works, and it's nice to see what the students are experiencing out there. But then the students see you too, and they're like, oh, I saw you at practice yesterday, so they like that. They like that connection there.
No, that's so true. And going off of that too, I remember one time, I think I sent like a travel letter to a professor and was explaining why like a student, even though it was a home game for something, like they couldn't be there, like meeting with a teacher, something like 30 minutes before the game started.
Mhm.
And they're like, well, I don't understand. I'm like, oh, well, they have to, like stretch and get dressed and get ready. It's not just like a small little, oh, let me go run on over, to the gym real quick.
Right.
And like get taped up and do everything. And so I had them kind of like be our guest coach, and even just showing them like our building too, and explaining like the resources we have. And they're like, oh, wait, so yeah, they do have support, and there is someone checking out for them, and they're not just, randomly doing things. And yeah, showing them the facilities. They're like, oh, yeah, that makes no sense. Why would they have been like right away, like just running back and forth? So it was so funny to see like some of them really just don't know, but I'm glad at least a lot of them are willing to be open-minded and kind of see like, oh, like here's for even like the student athletes, the other side too. And I've emailed so many professors before, and then I finally meet them. I'm like, oh, hey, nice to actually really meet you. I'm a real person, I promise. So
Right.
Yeah, but being present and like having them see you and know who you are goes so far in that relationship. That was something I think like one of the coaches I was talking to, because I was interning with our sports psych program, and one of the coaches was like, that is one of the best things you can do, is just like be present to where they can see you, and to where these athletes know like who you are, and that there's someone they can go and talk to. And so that is such a big part of it.
Absolutely. You have to build that trust with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of like achieving work-life balance, what would be some of those long-term benefits that come with that?
I mean, obviously mental health is going to come into that, not making sure you're not getting burnt out doing what you're doing because you're doing too much. So
Yeah.
having balance is going to keep you from getting that burnout.
no, yeah, I mean, Sam, I know you just kind of talked about burnout and everything too within student athletes, but and then I just went to another session, and it was kind of focused on like people are in like the teaching profession and how they are leaving that profession now. And obviously just, I'm sure everyone's seen athletics too, there is such a big turnaround there too. So with burnout, still having kind of that want to do well and like that work drive and everything, and knowing too, like for me, like making sure like the quality of my work is also good, because if you're saying yes to everything and not really taking the time to take a step back and reevaluate and look at stuff, like, so yeah, for me, I'm like, oh no, if my quality work isn't good, then how am I supposed to be helping anyone out in that sense?
Yeah, and we want to be able to stay in this profession for as long as we can. And so definitely taking care of ourselves will help with that longevity, so that we can continue to support. And like you're saying too, like we want the quality of our work to be good, and to be up to our standards for the student athletes that we work with. So definitely having that balance to take care of ourselves.
And I'm one of those former teachers that left the profession. I did it for 18 years, and it was, talk about burnout. And it was hard, especially after the pandemic. It was really hard to be in the classroom And, especially the school I was at, we didn't have the administrative support that we really needed. So that really made the burnout worse. So to be in this position and to have the support that I feel like I have now and working with these kids, it's nice to have that back in my life.
Yeah, that is nice. And it's so like just sad to hear those stories of, a career that I imagine you loved and were super passionate about, and getting to that point. It's just upsetting to hear that, but I'm glad that you found this role where you do feel supported.
That was so huge, honestly, with the pandemic. And my dad is a high school counselor, and not laughing at him, but laughing at him, like teaching my dad how to use like Zoom and how to use like the different Google Drives and things like that. And you talk about support, and even just with the students too, making sure that they had the resources where not everyone had access to a laptop, or I think like some article somewhere afterwards where because I've seen so many students, I thought this was interesting too, how they use a lot of like the Google documents and sheets and stuff like that, because they might not have had the resources and funding to have Microsoft Word. So a lot of professors are, like asking students to submit something on just Microsoft Word or PDF. And they're like, well, I have my Google, which we always encourage, obviously, too, just because that way they can always have stuff saved and those documents and stuff. But trying to have professors also kind of work with them and be like, okay, well, here's how you save these things. And sorry, that was kind of all over the place, but just all the different like things that we've seen that people are having to answer for. And these students now like having missed different benchmarks, and teachers having to go over stuff that normally they might have gone over 2 years ago, but they're having to rewind and reteach stuff because they weren't getting that information when the pandemic was happening.
Yeah, it was definitely kind of trial by fire with the technology. Even the kids, we think of these students as digital natives. They don't know life without technology, and I'm not, but I'm far from that. But I've always kept up with it. I always was interested in the technology and stuff. But it's funny because they are digital natives. They know technology, but they only know what they want to know about technology. So whenever it comes to like the school technology stuff, they don't want to know it. So they're always more difficult to work with when it comes to that stuff.
Oh my gosh, I had a student in my office today who didn't know how to copy someone on the email. And they're like, but look, I sent this one email. I'm like, oh, that's so great. I guess next step is learning how to copy people on it that were supposed to be on it. Right. So it's so funny, like they kind of know. And then you're like, oh, okay, something basic like this. Let's go over this now too. Like, it's just so funny to see. But yeah, if I had to put like an Instagram, like reel or something together, it'd be like so great, but right. Little things that we do all the time. I'm like, okay, we'll go over this today, I guess.
And texting has ruined their grammar.
Oh, yes.
I was gonna say, wait till you have to teach the student how to do a BCC.
Right.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's gonna blow their mind. Any other questions that like y'all have, or topics related to work-life balance, burnout, any of those things?
Well, from your side, was there anything from like the student athletes that you found that you think would be kind of like important for us to know?
Yeah, so let me share a little bit about my role in what I've done. So this past year, I was able to work as an intern with sports psych, and with that, I can meet individually with students in a counseling setting and work on different issues that have come up, which has been really nice to kind of get that perspective and hear that side of things. Earlier today, I was able to present at this conference with a colleague about burnout in student athletes. And it was definitely an eye-opening experience to hear like their perspective of burnout, because there are so many expectations and pressures. And I think it's similar to being a working professional. Like a lot of us have families and children and things going on in our lives and our bosses that we're reporting to. And so it's similar but different. And so it really makes me think about how having that self-compassion is so vital, like for ourselves, for the students that we work with, just to know that like everyone is going through something, and being mindful of that in our work and being able to talk about these things. I think attending something like this where you engage in these types of discussions makes it easier to do in the future and less uncomfortable, because these are important conversations to have and to be able to say if you need support or if you need help, and kind of wanting to model that for the students that we work with so that they understand it's okay to do that and that we do have resources that we can connect them with. Because a lot of times they don't always feel seen or heard, or that they're able to complain about things. I think that's been a really big piece is, it seems on the outside that everything's fine and that they have so much going for them, but really underneath that, there's a lot more. And so I think just really being mindful of how this can affect everyone. And yeah, just, I think we're all so passionate and care so much. And oftentimes we want to give all that we can. But the first step in order to be able to do that is to prioritize ourselves and take care of ourselves, which doesn't always feel natural.
That's one thing that I have noticed since I've been here, my short few months, is that the students tend to not say something when they have something going on. They know that with us, their priority is, being a student athlete, being a student. But when they have stuff going on personally, they don't let us know that, hey, we've got this going on, or, and I know it's a private, private, they want to be private, whatever. But sometimes that's something that, I wish they would share more.
Yeah.
So that we could help them work through that.
Absolutely. And I think too, that goes back to how a lot of athletes are socialized to like deal with problems and to, what is like some of those sayings, like if you're injured, like rub some dirt on it, or to like not really express that. And so that's kind of how they've been conditioned and how they want to deal with things and not express that, which is a challenge for us to support them if we're not being able to open up and have those conversations.
Right, because ultimately it's going to manifest itself in their schoolwork or even in their athletics.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's what's unfortunate too, is because a lot of times it gets to that point where they keep pushing it down until they no longer can.
No, that is so true. Just like the communication factor and kind of like with us too, like knowing that we have kind of people around that we can reach out to and even just small conversations. So we know like, oh, like maybe this person can help me out with something else or things like that within our role too. I think it's been really important too.
And that's something that I'm taking over the summer bridge program for our incoming athletes. And I
Yeah.
think something that maybe we can work on incorporating into our bridge program is maybe talking about that kind of stuff, and maybe establishing some, letting them know that, we have resources for them so that they don't have to, just hold on to that stuff.
Absolutely. Do you all have a sports psychology department at your university?
I'm going to have to check with our student athlete development center. We're kind of separated on the campus. They used to be over here in our building, and now they're over in another building. And we're ultimately, I think within the next 5 years, they're building us a place where we're all going to be together again. But with me being new, I haven't really gotten along with a lot of people yet. But that's something that I'll have to check with them and see. I think we do. I think they just hired somebody new for that area, for the mental health aspect over in the football facility. So I'll have to check on that and maybe have them come, talk to the kids and, let them know that is available for them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that they've done here at LSU with the summer bridge program. Is they've had different people come in and speak, and they've brought in our sports psych team to kind of like introduce themselves, and back to what we were saying, like that presence, at least now they're aware that there is this resource available to them.
That's one of the things I love about Summer Bridge as well, is seeing like all those like new students come in just like brand new, and really being like that first person and kind of like really greet them and show them like, oh, here's how we're doing things and here's our expectations, and figuring out like what works for them too. And with that too, like collaborating with so many people. We've brought in at the other institution I worked for before too, like we kind of started up the program, bring in like the on-campus academic advisors and letting them kind of speak and say like, what do they do? Having some professors that we know, we've done like a panel too, where they can kind of say like, here's how I expect a student to email me, and here's some things that I love when I see a student athlete do. Who else come in? Our faculty athletic representative. We've had like the registrar come in too and just be like, oh, like here's kind of my role. And the financial aid people had compliance come in, which then for them, it gets them to see too, like what we're doing, and kind of making those connections, and then them knowing too, like, oh, I can reach out to Taylor if I need something, or vice versa. I'm like, oh, I could talk to this person again now too. So having those other relationships and being able to use them if we need them.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because it really is like this whole team approach, like all of the different interdisciplinary teams coming together to support. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with our eval slide.
Okay.
Let me get this going. So if y'all could each just take a moment and scan, I don't know if y'all scan the one for the conference eval and for the session eval, just to leave some feedback for us. That would be super helpful and much appreciated. And thank you for engaging in conversation. It was so nice to speak to you both about these things.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.